Hey everybody, welcome back to World History with Mr. Finn. We are going into the Greek world today. So, if you remember, we started out, just to give you an idea, right here with the Fertile Crescent and Mesopotamia. We talked about Egypt, and I said we'd be coming back to this Mediterranean world. However, we made a stop over here in India, and we talked a little bit about Chinese history and Buddhism, and these religions and how society was in this area. But now we're coming back over to this side right here. And now we're going to go the Greek world. Greece, the modern country, is right here. But this is the same place that ancient Greece was. And so we're coming right to here. So when we talk about Greece, we'll go Greece, we'll talk about Rome here, and some other areas in the Mediterranean world, which is in this area of the map. And again, just for point of reference, we are all the way over here in the modern day United States in Arizona. So this is all the way over here. Greece is going to be in modern day Europe, and this is where we'll be talking about. So let me take us on our trip. You've seen on the map where we are, where we're going to be discussing. And let me tell you a little bit about early Greece. So let's get our map out of the way. Adios, map. Okay, so ancient Greece. The Greek world is important for us in particular because it's going to be the beginning of Western civilization. And the United States is considered Western civilization. So this will be the start of everything that we have here in America. So things like democracy, we'll see for the first time, and some other things, a phonetic language, meaning that we have letters that make sounds that you can put together to make the words, which we had not seen up until this point. Most of the languages and the writing that we've seen so far, whether it was cuneiform in ancient Sumeria or hieroglyphics in Egypt, are going to be picture-based representations of sounds and letters, whereas a phonetic alphabet is one, again, where you have an alphabet and you can put these letters together to make sounds that end up being words. So, the first early Greek civilizations are going to be based on an archipelago. And what that means is ancient Greece is made up of a lot of different islands. So when we looked at whether Egypt, Samaria, or India, any of the civilizations so far, those were landlocked, they were on a river, whereas ancient Greece is going to be on the Mediterranean and have a lot of these different islands, which is going to play a part in how ancient Greece develops, meaning that we are going to see something called a polis. A polis is basically a city unit. A city unit. So that would be the same. I'll even write this back up here. We saw this in early Mesopotamia with Samaria, called city-states, if you remember in your notes. City-states were their own political units that made up all of Samaria. And that's really the same way ancient Greece is going to be. So in ancient Greece, you're going to have different societies that operated as their own, we would consider countries today. They would have their own areas, they would make their own laws, own governments, but all of their culture, they would have the same religion and the same language and everything else, which made them all part of the Greek civilization. So they were all Greek civilizations, but they were absolutely different from one another in how they went about doing things, which meant that these polis and having these city-states is going to end up having a lot of conflict. Conflict meaning that they didn't always get along. I was really part of Athens, which was a polis in ancient Greece. Or I was a Spartan, and this is the way I think about things, and I'm really different from how you are. However, we're all Greek. And so, when we look at the early ancient Greek civilizations, a lot of it, or one of the big things that we take our history from, are something called these epic poems. Or epics. Epics are, let's call them for us, stories. And these stories are going to tell about the early Greek civilizations, the Mycenaeans or the Minoans, which, again, you don't need to know necessarily the Mycenaeans or the Minoans by name, but we have to understand what their culture was like, what they did, and we can find this in these epics. These epics, the most famous, are going to be written by someone by the name of Homer. Homer wrote two of the famous epics. One is the Iliad and the Odyssey. And you know what? Good thing I have this here, because Odyssey is always one that you want to make sure you get right, because it has a Y and it has S's and E's. And I knew, being me and having taught this before, that I wanted to make sure I got it right on the boards for your notes. So, the Iliad and the Odyssey are two of the famous epics, these stories written by Homer that tell us a lot about these early Greek civilizations. And you're going to be looking into them today, but I'll give you a brief rundown of these epics because they are important to understand what, early Greek civilization were like. So, let's start with the Iliad. We'll make an arrow up here, tell you a little bit about it. The Iliad is about something called the Trojan War. Now, the Trojan War, what is it? Well, there was a Greek civilization on one side of the ocean, or the Mediterranean Sea, from the Mycenaeans. And you're going to love the story when you look into it, but there was a Mycenaean queen, and she was taken by the Trojans to the Greek polis of Troy. That's why it's called the Trojan War, city of Troy. And so she was taken from the Mycenaeans, taken to Troy so she could marry this prince. And this prince was like, hey, I love you love me, you don't like this Mycenaean king, I want to bring you to Troy, and we can be together, it'll be great. Obviously, the Mycenaean king was not very happy about this. He's like, how dare you take my queen and take her over to Troy? This will not stand. I am not going to have it. And so he leads his army of Greeks over across the Adriatic Sea to actually the Aegean Sea. And again, you don't need to know all these different seas. It's in the Mediterranean. Takes him across the Aegean Sea to Troy to fight the Trojans to get his queen back. And this war lasts a long time. And you're going to look into this war and tell me about it. So I'm not going to give you all the details. But in the end, what's going to happen is the Trojans are going to end up losing. And we thought that this was just a fun story by Homer. We didn't think it was really a true historical account of something happening. Until an archaeologist went to the area following the story of Homer and found the ruins of this ancient city, which they determined was the city of Troy, which led all of us who are historians, and you're historians because you're in here right now watching this, to now believe that, hey, the city of Troy really did exist. This wasn't just a fairy tale. It really happened, and this is the city of Troy, and we see that the result of this war could be found in the archaeology. Now, you're going to look into this. You're going to look into the Trojan War today and tell me what happened. But the important part is for us to look at the second part, which is the Odyssey. And the Odyssey I'll explain a little bit more. The Odyssey is going to be about a king who fought in the Trojan War. And on his way home, he runs into many adventures. So this is going to be about the trip home from Troy. And this Trojan War lasted years and years and years. And so this king who fought in the Trojan War is going to go home. He's excited. He's like, man, I've been away from home so long. Can't wait to get back to my own polis. And so on his way home, he has all of his men with him, and they're on their way back across the Mediterranean, back to go home. And this story of the Odyssey has all these different things happen. So we get stories, maybe you've heard of the Cyclops, which is the monster with one eye, or the Minotaur, which is half man, half bull. There's sirens involved in these stories. So there's all these adventures, and if you're reading this, it's an interesting story because it's, obviously we don't have Minotaurs running around. We don't have Cyclops and all these actual monsters. but it's a fantasy story. So many people over the years read the Odyssey and just enjoyed it for what it was. They were like, this is a great story. I'm into it. Is this king going to get home? Is he going to get back to his wife? What's going to happen? During this time, it tells the story of what was going on with his wife back in his polis, and people saying, oh, the king had died. We need to find a new king. And she's like, no. I still have hope. And this has been years that it's going on. And so Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey will really tell us a lot about the early Greeks. And this is what you're going to do today. Both stories, and you have them right here, the Iliad and the Odyssey, so you can look them up. You are going to tell me, you're going to give me a summary. A summary is a basic overview. Let me explain that. A basic overview is going to be telling me kind of what happens. I've explained a little bit of it to you, but what I want you to do is go and look up, let me get out of your way here, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and tell me a basic summary. A summary is going to be about 3/4 page. That's going to tell me about each. In fact, let's make it easy for you now that I'm sitting here thinking about 2 stories that you're going to look up. Let's make it 1 page total. So 1 page total. So you can do half on one, half on the other, and tell me the basics of what happened. Who are the characters? What are some of the stories? What happened in each? How did the Mycenaeans win the Trojan War? You'll be surprised. You probably have heard of it before, but I want you to take some time and look into it because this will explain a little bit about the story of who the ancient Greeks were. Again, the idea of the Odyssey, really, just to give you a heads up, is more about honor and how you're supposed to act, and if you do right, good things will happen. If you do wrong, bad things will happen. It explains something about the religion and the gods. This is a polytheistic religion, which we'll get into with the gods of ancient Greece later on. But the Iliad and the Odyssey are going to tell us a lot about it, and I want you to look into it and give me a basic summary of these 2 stories and see what you find. And then we'll talk a little bit more about it maybe next week or next class. We'll look at what you thought was interesting about it and your breakdown of what you found. So see you next class. Make sure you do this today, again, for participation and attendance. You guys are doing a great job, and I look forward to seeing it.